Good evening and welcome to the Town of Cary Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Thank you for joining us tonight. I now call this meeting to order. All board members, staff, and applicants are participating in the Cary Council chamber. Our board clerk, Julie Mitchell, will now take roll call for this evening.
Thank you, Chair. The following board members are not able to join us this evening: Andy Coe and Chris Johnson. For the record, the following board members are present: Jeff Moncrief, Mary Jo Hill, Don Hamilton, Stephen Crutchfield, Jessica Pearson, Mike Roselli, John Sorrell, and Jessica McClure.
Thank you. The Cary Community Plan will continue to be the guiding document for this board. Our role is to function as citizen advisors to the Town Council, who will make the final decision on all rezoning activity. Our citizen opinions, based on the Cary Community Plan document, are a very important role in advising our town leaders. While this is a public meeting, please be aware it is not a public hearing. There is no opportunity for the public to speak during this meeting. If you have comments about any of these cases, we encourage you to reach out to the staff case manager or the applicant by email or phone. You may reach out to our board members through email. You may also contact council directly through email or during the public speaks out portion of any regularly scheduled town council meeting. All motions, seconds, and votes will be verbally obtained. Votes will be taken as a group, with those voting for answering aye and opposed answering nay. This is consistent with the council and other boards. These meetings will be streamed live on the Town of Cary website and will be posted to YouTube within a few days following this meeting. All past Planning and Zoning Board meetings are available to view on YouTube. Would someone make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda, please?
So moved.
In a second.
I second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. That's carried unanimously. Is there now a motion that we can approve the July 25th meeting minutes unless someone has any changes they'd like to put forward? Can make a motion on that.
I move that we accept the agenda for tonight.
Meeting minutes.
I'm sorry, the minutes of
Perfect.
this meeting.
Would someone like to second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. That also carries unanimously. The first case this evening is 22 REZ 093528 Optimus Farm Road. Heather Wheelahan, Senior Housing Planner, will share the staff's presentation. Following the presentation, the applicant will share their remarks. All board members will have an opportunity to ask questions of the staff and the applicants. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Board. This is a request to rezone 6.97 acres at 3528 Optimus Farm Road from its current zoning of Wake County R30 Residential 30 to Cary zoning R8 CU Residential 8 conditional use. The property is a quarter mile from Middle Creek High School and just east of the Westlake Road Optimus Farm Road intersection. It is contiguous on 3 sides to Cary's corporate limits and will require annexation. The public hearing for this annexation is scheduled for September. Cary's GIS maps indicate a pond on the northeastern portion of the site. Field determination will be made at the time of development plan review. The development will facilitate additional vehicular and pedestrian connections. As required by the LDO, Bluethorn Drive will be extended to Optimus Farm Road upon development of this site. This new road will provide emergency access and support neighborhood connectivity. Additionally, the applicant will be required to construct the approximately 435 feet section of future sidewalk along the property's frontage. American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funding, was also included in the FY 2023 budget to construct this missing sidewalk link on Optimus Farm Road between Home Place Drive and Henderson Road. That means together, this development and Cary's ARPA sidewalk project will create a new continuous pedestrian connection along Optimus Farm Road from neighborhoods east of Henderson Road to Westlake Road. This helps more directly connect these neighborhoods to Middle Creek Elementary, middle, and high schools. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan does not propose any greenways within or immediately adjacent to the site. However, there are 3 corridors in proximity. The Westlake Road Streetside Trail is located approximately a quarter-mile west of the site. Access to this trail will be possible via the new sidewalks along Optimus Farm Road. Additionally, the proposed Westlake Greenway corridor is about a quarter-mile north of the site, and the proposed Optimus Farm Greenway corridor is approximately a 1/10 of a mile east of the site. The Middle Creek School Park is located about a 1/2 mile west of the site. The property is currently zoned Wake County R30, Residential 30, and the applicant proposes to rezone to R8 CU, Residential 8 conditional use. The applicant has offered several conditions. These include limiting uses to detached dwellings, limiting the dwellings to a maximum of 20 or just under 3 units per acre, and committing that lots be calculated exclusive of the riparian buffers. Live, shape, move, and serve policies of the Imagine Cary Community Plan are most relevant to this request. The proposal could support live policies by facilitating residential development on infill sites. In terms of the shape chapter, the rezoning proposes infill development on an underperforming site along Optimus Farm Road and constitutes an appropriate harmonious transition between adjacent uses. This proposal also supports the move chapter, as the development of these properties will facilitate the additional pedestrian and vehicular connections with the completion of Bluethorn Drive and the new sidewalks along Optimus Farm Road. The proposal also supports the serve chapter by including the condition to calculate the lots exclusive of any riparian buffers. The future growth framework map designates the subject site with the suburban neighborhood development category. Suburban neighborhoods are the primary transition zones adjacent to county development and consist primarily of single-unit detached dwellings with occasional pods of patio homes and townhomes. The Cary Community Plan notes R8 as an appropriate zoning for this designation. Staff facilitated a virtual neighborhood meeting in May. 26 members of the public attended. Comments included concern for stormwater runoff on Field Glow Lane, traffic on Optimus Farm Road, concern for a potential removal of trees on the property and a request for more open space, a preference for single detached dwellings with larger lots, questions regarding sidewalks, and questions regarding the extension of Bluethorn Drive. Staff received 3 emails and 1 call since the neighborhood meeting, and those comments were regarding the street connections and buffers. Town Council held a public hearing for this request in July. There were no written comments and no speakers. Council did not have any questions nor comments. The applicant has not made any changes since the public hearing. And staff's preliminary finding is for consistency with the Imagine Cary Community Plan. We found that the request supports the live, work, shape, move, and serve policies of the plan by facilitating residential development on infill sites, incorporating appropriate transitions between adjacent neighborhoods, facilitating additional vehicular and pedestrian connections, and calculating the lots exclusive of the riparian buffers. This concludes staff's presentation. The applicant's representative, Brandon Moore, is here to address you this evening, and after his comments, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Brandon Moore with the Site Group at 1111 Oberlin Road in Raleigh. I don't have a lot to add to that. I just wanted to reiterate the appropriate harmonious transition comment that Heather made. The goal of this project is to develop a neighborhood that fits with the surrounding properties and to complete the street network and I'm really here to answer any questions for you and make sure that there's nothing outstanding on the project. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now is the time for board members to ask questions of staff or the applicant, and we'll start to my right with Jessica McClure. Any questions?
No questions.
Okay.
No questions. I have no questions.
I have a few questions. I'm just curious, what does ARPA stand for?
American Rescue Plan Act, so it's some federal funding that has been passed along to communities to address some local needs since the pandemic.
Oh,
And we have some latitude about what we can use that for, and in part, Carrie is using that to fill some gaps in our sidewalk network.
Oh, that's really cool. Thank you. And I was just curious, it says a maximum of 20 dwellings, and you said in your presentation that was 3 units per acre. It could be less than 20, though, at the point of development plan review. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. The maximum would be 20, but, depending on the development layout, it could end up being less than that, correct.
And I just have one final question. So why R8 as opposed to R12?
So that gives them, the minimum lot size for R8 is 8,000 square feet, and for R12 would be 12,000 square feet. And I might let Brandon address that further in terms of development pattern and why they chose that
Okay.
as the proposal.
Yeah, so we have townhomes that back up to us on the west side and lots that go down to 8,500 square foot on the north side. So we were looking at, really we're looking at something that's reasonable. It's not because we think we're going to get exactly 20. It's something that fits with the continuation of Bluethorn Drive. We wouldn't, normally we wouldn't expect lots to get bigger as they approach a larger road. It just makes sense to continue that pattern and not put much larger lots next to the townhome neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
That's it?
Yep.
Don, any questions?
No, sir.
You, Joe?
I have no questions.
No questions here either.
Okay, I just have really a clarification. You probably already said this and I missed it. There's a pond on this property, right?
That's right.
Is that going to become drainage or go away, or what happens to that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So any impact to that pond or the potential buffers around that pond would require approval from our stormwater team, who happens to be here tonight to address you on their amendment. So that the applicant has not proposed any conditions around the pond. So Carrie's normal standards for, and the North Carolina State's normal standards for buffer disturbance would apply. And that would happen at the time of development plan.
Okay, so you guys will just hash that out as it goes forward. And it
That's right.
theoretically could become drainage, or no?
I don't think I don't know if it could become drainage.
It could, okay.
Yeah, you want to address that, Brandon, what your plans are there?
So currently, there are no plans for the pond to drain it. What you can't see on the plan is there's actually a small sliver of property between our property and Henderson Road. They don't tie in exactly, so we would never be able to connect to Henderson Road from this property, and the depth of the property there wouldn't be wide enough to put a road or an alley, and then you have overlapping property lines with the pond, so there's just a lot of complications that would have to be resolved in order to drain that pond. So I think we're just going to avoid it and leave it there and hopefully make all the neighbors happy.
That's perfect. You actually read my mind, because I didn't know that. I was going to ask you if you were going to connect to Henderson Road, so you answered that as well, so got it. That's all I have.
Okay, great.
Any other questions from the, and seeing that there's no further questions, would someone like to make a motion for 22 REZ 093528 Optimus Farm Road? I think the words are up on the screen now.
Sure, I'll make a motion. I move that the board find case number 22REZ09 is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans for the reasons set forth in the staff report, presentation, and discussion by the P&Z board.
Perfect. Second?
Sure, I'll second. Oh.
Okay,
no,
that's
go ahead, Joe. There's 3 seconds.
Either way,
I'll
yeah, it
defer.
doesn't matter.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, any discussion from the board on this motion? I'm going to go out on a limb, and I don't see a lot of excitement for that. Okay, if there is no discussion, then, I don't have any other thoughts other than I'm glad to see that this is detached housing, so that's I think is a good thing. No discussion, going? Okay. In that case, we'll now take a vote on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, say nay. So that carries unanimously. Thank you. The second case on tonight's agenda is Act 24 Land Development Ordinance, and our stormwater specialist, Linda Booz, will share the staff's presentation. There will not be an applicant speaking on this case. All board members will have an opportunity to ask questions of the staff following the presentation. Thank you. Oh, and I think we have a statement prior to that.
Real quick, sorry, I'm jumping in. Lisa's she's ready to go and she's gonna knock your socks off. But before that happens, I'd like to give Mike a chance to just say a few words regarding his relation to this case. We've learned that Mike works for a company that makes submittals to the town that will be potentially affected by these ordinance changes, and we wanted to just make sure that these are not of a nature that will impact his ability to be an impartial decision maker tonight. So Mike, if you...
Sure, yeah. I have an engineering firm here in Cary, Underfoot Engineering. We do private land development plans, and I guess any change to the town ordinance would necessarily be ordinance changes that I would reflect to my clients, and that any plans we produce would have to meet those requirements. That said, I don't believe that this will affect me to be impartial this evening.
Thank you. Lisa, you're up.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. Tonight for your consideration is the Act 24 Amendment to Cary's Land Development Ordinance. This amendment includes proposed updates to the flood ordinance and consolidating existing environmental protections into a new chapter. Item A, updates to the flood ordinance. In order to maintain the availability of flood insurance for Cary residents through the National Flood Insurance Program, Cary's flood ordinance must meet the minimum criteria established by FEMA. Additionally, by incorporating the language that aligns with the community rating system, Cary can earn additional credits which translate into insurance savings for our residents. Item B removes the existing sections related to environmental protection regulations within the LDO that were identified and selected for relocation to a new chapter. And lastly, item C involves the creation of new LDO Chapter 14, Environmental Regulation, which consolidates those selected sections into one new chapter. In May, Cary adopted the new Wake County flood insurance rate maps. The next step in the process is to update our floodplain management regulations to meet FEMA criteria by incorporating the most recent model ordinance language and definitions, as well as to incorporate FEMA recommended language for future CRS credits. In summary, updates to the flood ordinance include establishing the role of the town floodplain administrator, clarifying the floodplain development permit process to facilitate better record keeping by town staff, providing additional clarifications for when a FEMA elevation certificate is required, and as suggested by FEMA, to earn additional CRS credits incorporating a more protective threshold for when an existing structure that's in the floodplain would be required to meet the current floodplain construction requirements. During the process of reviewing the flood ordinance updates, staff identified an opportunity to better serve Cary citizens by reorganizing several sections related to environmental protections. The existing sections that regulate tree clearing and stream buffers, erosion and sediment control, illegal discharges, nuisance and hazard controls, as well as the newly updated flood damage prevention ordinance, would be moved from their current location in the LDO to a new environmental regulation chapter. The new Chapter 14 then consolidates many of Cary's existing environmental protections into a single location. Grouping these existing environmental protection regulations within the ordinance highlights their importance and provides easier access for Cary citizens. Creating this new Chapter 14 reflects Cary's commitment to conserving trees, preserving open space, protecting natural resources, preventing pollution, and reducing flood damages. Council held a public hearing for this act amendment at their July 28th meeting. No citizens spoke or submitted comments, nor did council members have any comments. Since the public hearing, staff has made some minor updates and clarifications to the text. These updates include minor updates to additional LDO sections where the cross-references need to direct to the new Chapter 14. Clarifying that the Zoning Board of Adjustment, not Town Council, issues any necessary special use permits. And then further refining the text in new Chapter 14 to better clarify existing processes. Act 24 amendments support Policy 3 of the Imagine Cary Community Plan's SERVE chapter, encourage environmentally responsible stormwater management. By ensuring Cary's ordinances are consistent with federal floodplain management regulations, we will continue our efforts to reduce flooding risks as well as maintain flood insurance availability for our citizens. By consolidating existing environmental protections into a new LDO chapter, Act 24 supports SERVE Policy 5, protect and restore open space and the natural environment. The new environmental regulation chapter not only makes our existing environmental protection regulations more accessible to citizens and staff, but it will also support future environmental planning initiatives. Staff believes these Act 24 amendments are consistent with and necessary for carrying out the intent of the Imagine Cary Community Plan. This concludes staff's overview of the proposed Act 24 LDO amendments, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Now is the time for the board to ask questions of the staff, and we'll start down with you, Jeff. Any questions?
No, I don't think I have any questions at this time.
Okay, Mary Jo?
I don't believe I have any questions.
John?
None other.
I have one question.
please.
Can you share a little bit about the section references that you said had to be updated? Are those, how did that process work?
So several chapters within the LDO deal with process, with enforcement, and those are grouped together. They cross-reference over to the actual chapter where the regulations are.
Okay.
And so by moving, say, tree clearing certificate to a new chapter, any references made to enforcement or permitting for that would also have to then be updated with the new chapter number.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
No questions.
I have one. You mentioned that this would strengthen the requirements for what could be built or maybe rebuilt in the floodplain. What sort of activities would be changed by the new regulation?
Okay. The current requirement, it has to do with existing buildings that are in the floodplain currently. It's about retrofits to meet the current building requirements. Many homes that were built, say, many, many years ago, if they've sustained damage or they have improvements or repairs that exceed 50% of the value of that building within a year, they would have to be brought into compliance with the current construction standards, and that's the current regulation. In order to gain CRS credit, we would strengthen that by tracking that instead of over a 1-year period, over a 5-year period of time. So in the span of 5 years, if the improvements or repairs to a structure that's in the floodplain exceeded 50% of the value of that building, we would then have to get that building into compliance with our current building requirements.
Awesome, thank you.
No questions.
Perfect. I just have one question. Did this change floodplain, so like is an area that maybe wasn't in a floodplain is in one now, or vice versa? Did it change any of those for the town?
Not this text change didn't. The flood maps themselves, when they were adopted in May, did have changes to where the floodplain was delineated and not delineated.
Is that part, would that be, what section would that be in? Would that be in the new environmental section, or is it completely different from this?
So one part of the floodplain ordinance stays where it is, and that's related to the actual process and permit, and that stays in Chapter 3. But the actual floodplain regulations, as far as what's required, even with the incorporating the new updates from FEMA's model ordinance, they would be moved to new Chapter 14.
Gotcha. And I think you can go on the website and put your address in or something, it'll tell you that, is that true?
Yes.
Awesome.
There's several places, both with the town and through the state, you can type in an address and see if it's in the floodplain.
Okay, I'll get around to that eventually. Any further questions from the board? Seeing that there's no further questions, would someone like to make a motion for Act 24 Land Development Ordinance? The options are on the screen.
Sure, I'll make the motion.
Okay,
I move that the board find Act 24 amendments to the Land Development Ordinance to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans for the reasons set forth in the staff report, presentation, and discussion by the Planning and Zoning Board.
thank you. Would someone like to second?
I will second.
Thank you. Comments on this? Do you have any comments?
I think the presentation was very straightforward, and I think this is an important step in the right direction. So that's why I made the motion.
Okay, Mary Jo, any comments?
Well, water is consistently an issue that comes up that concerns people. Anybody who's a homeowner has had to deal with water-related problems, and I think anything that we can do to be compliant with what FEMA's directives are, and certainly improving the opportunity for a rate decrease would always be welcome. So I'm in favor.
Excellent.
I have one additional comment, too. I think it's smart that it's a standalone chapter that signals a couple things. One, that Carrie is serious about environmental issues, and then also I think it's just more user-friendly. It's probably easier to locate the regulations, so.
Perfect. Anyone else have comments? Any, Jeff, Don? Okay, seeing that there's no further comments, all those in favor state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That passes unanimously. Thank you. We do have new business this evening, and for that, I'd like to recognize Planning Manager Katie Drive for some remarks from the Planning Department.
Good evening, Board Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Board. I'm here on behalf of Scott Berry, our Chief Development Officer, who couldn't be here tonight, to say a few words about our Associate Planning Director, Deborah Grannon.
We've worked together too long.
This is obviously very, very hard for me to say these, so I may be stumbling over my words. Tonight is Deborah's last night with the Planning and Zoning Board because on August 31st, Deborah will be retiring from the town of Cary after 30 years of service. Deborah started with the town in 1991 as an inspection scheduler, and she'll be retiring as our Associate Planning Director and staff liaison to the Planning and Zoning Board. And so I'd like to share just a few of Deborah's many accomplishments over the past 30 years. I'd like to start by saying that she has been the staff liaison to both the Planning and Zoning Board and the Zoning Board of Adjustment. She's worked on many different types of permits, as well as processes that go before boards, including the Town Council, this board, the Zoning Board of Adjustment, as well as others. Deborah's held now 9 positions with the town of Cary. and most recently, the Associate Planning Director. One of Deborah's favorite types of permits to work on are sign permits, which Carrie is very well known for. Between the years of 2006 to 2017, Deborah has processed 1,800 sign permits. That represents 28% of the sign permits within this time period. Between the years of 1973 to 2022, and of course Deborah hasn't been here that entire time, we've handled several thousand rezoning cases, and I'd like to note that Deborah has worked on 110 of them. This represents 2,390 acres of land and 7% of Cary's total land area. So again, this is hard for me to say because Deborah, we've so much enjoyed working with you, and I'm sad that it's your last meeting with the Planning and Zoning Board. And forgive me as I stumble my way through this, but you will certainly be missed. So thank you.
Response.
So for your consideration this evening is a great team. You know Katie. You'll get to know her more. Julie, of course, and I was delighted to have a chance to see Lisa up presenting to you tonight. We've got some really smart people, and Lisa Booz has been very helpful helping us understand stormwater regulations. And Priyatham Kanda, who's here on a regular basis, helping us understand all the nuances of traffic studies. In the past, you've seen Doug Loveland coming before you, helping you understand buffers, and our great legal team with Nick and Matt. And so grateful to have them. You'll see more of Heather doing more and more presentations, and Aaron Puckett with rezoning cases. And then we've got some up-and-coming members of the staff that are gonna just do a great job. And behind the scenes, Justin, who does our maps, does such a great job on the maps, and people doing research. So we have been able to come forward to you and present really detailed, polished, thoroughly researched cases. And then you've made our jobs easy because you ask us good questions. You help us understand how important the ordinance is to our community and how important the aesthetics are in Cary, which is evidenced by our strict sign ordinance. But you also care, you know, not just about yourselves, but you care about the adjacent property owners and the impact the rezonings have and the ordinance changes have on the environment and on the residents that are already here. And you balance that with the need for ongoing growth and property rights. So your professional integrity and your passion as Cary citizens goes noticed, and it's just been such an honor to work with all of you. And please continue to reach out and ask questions of staff ahead of time. We love that if we've got time to research the tough questions. And I am going to miss this a lot. I always loved coming and presenting to this board because sometimes it's hard to get up and do public speaking. You know, I can't even tell you, Katie, the names that I've mispronounced. Sometimes I've called on people and I turned around one time and I couldn't remember who somebody was. I looked right at them and I'd known them for years. But you guys make it easy because you definitely convey a passion and you care, and helps us do a better job. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to present to you and be part of the team that makes Cary so great. I'm going to miss you all.
We thank you. I think I can speak for everyone that I know in the years that I've been on this board, I think we've done actually a lot of those cases the last 7 years. But you know, you've been invaluable to all of us. So we will miss you. But this is an awesome next piece of your life, and go forth and enjoy it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we wish you well.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Deborah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, that really concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you for participating, and this meeting is now adjourned.